Hey, everybody. Happy Friday night. I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you're watching on replay, thank you so much for watching on replay. Remember to hit that thumbs up button. That's very important. Also, hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the little channel here. We've grown it pretty quickly, and that's been really exciting. And it's been thanks to all of you. So thank you so much. But the thumbs up button is really important, the like, because that helps the video in the YouTube universe, also known as the algorithm. So that would be very helpful if you would do that. Also, I love it when you guys tell me where you're from. So get in that chat in the comments and let me know where you're watching from, because we get people watching the Pope and me and the Neon A from other countries, which is so exciting. We get Australia, South Africa, the UK. We've had people from Germany. Somebody said like Russia one day, or China, I think. I may be mistaken on Russia. So my bad if I am, if that's like impossible. But we've had people from a lot of other countries, and that's been very, very exciting. So thank you so much. We've got some news to talk about. I was on here the other night, and on the other night when I was on here, we were talking about Bryan Kohberger being upset about being taunted in prison, or at least he believed he was being taunted. I don't know if that was true or not, because it sounds like maybe the prison thinks it wasn't really true. Like these prisoner people, just like the inmates, yell at each other through the vents and stuff like that. It's just what they do. They're bored. They have nothing else to do. Well, now there's some new news. There's a video or videos floating around the internet. And when I first saw these, I was like, you got to be careful these days in the world of AI, because guess what? All kinds of like enhanced or fake stuff can be floating around. But this looked pretty darn real when I saw it last night. Somebody tagged me on Twitter. So we're going to talk about that. I'll show it to you and tell you what the prison is saying. Also, I talked to two digital forensics experts who were brought in to look at Bryan Kohberger's data on his phone. And they were brought in by the FBI to examine the data on his phone and from his computer, those two items, to try to piece together, examine it, to see if there was more they could find about this crime and his motivation, or more evidence connecting him to the victims in this case, which, as far as we know, they've said there is no evidence connecting him to the victims in this case. So my conversation with them was very, very interesting. I'm going to play some of that with you. I actually did this interview Thursday afternoon. We had initially scheduled it for Thursday morning. It got moved to the afternoon. And so some things happen like that. And I was like, do I push it out last night? Do I just put it out last night? And then I was like, no, I'll hold on to it and just make it even better for Friday. And so I did that. And then other people got a hold of them. And I was kind of like, so I was a little bit bummed, like maybe I should have just run the interview yesterday, but I was trying to put everything around it and make it like better, a better piece to put out. So for those of you who've seen it, I hope you did enjoy it. So we're going to play a little bit of that. Also, we have, I've got I got the Idaho State police reports. There are like a bunch of Idaho State police reports. I requested these last month. I don't know why, but it sounds like some news outlets got them yesterday. I got them today from Idaho State Police. I requested them last month. So it sounds like there's, I don't know what's going on, because I requested them too, but I just got them. So I just got them from ISP. And so there you have it. It is what it is, guys. A lot going on with this case. So there's a lot to go through in these documents too. Bryan Kohberger, lots of complaints. We knew about this already, that people at Washington State University, particularly the people who were dealing with him at the university, particularly female students, had a lot of complaints about him. They did not like him. So there you go. So let's look first at this video that I put together for Law and Crime. And I think this was really interesting because a lot of what they talked about, there was stuff that they talked about in this video. There was stuff they talked about in this video. It was Jared Barnhart and Heather Barnhart. They are experts at Celebrate. And if you've ever watched a trial, you see these experts from Celebrate. And they examine cell phones, computers, you name it. And so that's why they were brought in. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Some of this stuff they talked about was on Dateline. You know, and when I say that, it's some of the information that we heard about from the Dateline broadcast, like the pornography searches, like that. But some of this stuff was new. We hadn't heard this before. And so Bryan Kohberger apparently wanted to sell his car. Can you believe this? It's not that shocking to me, but he looked into selling the white Elantra. That was one of the things they told me. So he knew that white Elantra was bad news for him. And they said he was looking to sell it. So that's an interesting new tidbit. But I thought we should look at this, and I'm going to play a good portion of this interview because I just thought it was fascinating listening to them talk. So let me share my screen. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at my interview. And some of these things that they talk about are a little bit in the weeds when it comes to the digital forensics, but some of it's just really interesting. You hear about how they go about their work. I mean, they're not getting too crazy about it because they know they're talking to somebody like me who is not in the weeds on all this. But I found this to be fascinating. And the serial killers, I mean, Bryan Kohberger, they said this was not a criminology student just searching serial killers. Bryan Kohberger was obsessed with serial killers. I mean, a bunch of different serial killers, Ted Bundy, serial killers that I've heard of by their like nicknames, but not their real names. I was shocked by the number of serial killers that they said he was searching and downloading information about. Insane. So here we go. And I'll speed this up to 1.25 because I know you don't want to be here all night listening to this, but it was fascinating. I really appreciated them giving me so much time later too. So to discuss all of this, I would like to bring in Heather Barnhart and Jared Barnhart. They are both digital forensics experts at Celebrate, and Heather is also a fellow at the SANS Institute. So thank you guys both for coming on to talk with us about your work on the Idaho case.
Thank you for having us.
Heather, I'll start with you. When were you first approached about working on this case?
It was late spring of 2023 when the FBI reached out, seeing if I was interested in assisting.
Mm-hmm. And then Heather, do you reach out to Jared and say, or do you go back to the FBI and say, I think Jared, he should be, working on the case too, or how does that work?
Well, I casually asked them, would you prefer 4 sets of eyes versus 2? And it was a laptop and a phone. So having us divide and conquer, I thought could be really helpful. And they said, absolutely, come in. And that's how it all started.
So Jared, where do you guys go from there?
So we went into the FBI office and just sort of got a little bit of the pulse of where the investigation was, some of the digital evidence that they had. And I mean, from there, you really have to take a slow look at which devices had they extracted data from. We had one Android phone and then a computer, and then understanding, what they had already done. Like they had already spent time and effort in looking at this evidence and then seeing where our expertise sort of fit and what we might be able to dig for.
Mm-hmm.
The world can be a really scary and unpredictable place, and that's where our partner and sponsor.
Okay, we don't need the Morgan & Morgan ad. So this is them just, outlining to me how they did this, how they are brought into the case, because I thought that would be interesting to hear. Like, so they call Heather up and they're like, okay, Heather, we want you to come in and do this. And then she's like, okay, do you want an extra set of eyes? We can be, we can do a, twofer for you, they're husband and wife, which is also kind of cool, right? So let's pick up the rest of the interview from there. Fine.
Well, that was the hard part. I expected, I remember saying to Jared, we're going to go in there. We're going to find the motive. We're going to be able to tell these families why. We're going to understand how this crime occurred. And there was so much information that just wasn't there. That was shocking. And that's when I started to panic a bit and saying, you know what? I'm going to use Celebrate Inspector. The FBI granted me a license to use Magnet Axiom, which is a competitor of Celebrate. I used open source tools. It was almost a desperate chase to find data that was erased.
Mm. And how hard is that to find data that is erased? Because it can be done.
Well, it depends on how it was deleted. So on a computer, if you drag something to the recycle bin, or if you do shift delete, that information can be recovered for a set period of time. If it's in a database on a computer, it can be recovered for a set period of time until it's purged. But when it's purged, depending on how it's overwritten, it can really be gone. And there are tools out there that will overwrite the data, so it is unrecoverable.
Mm-hmm. So we hear, in the news, we've heard in the past about programs, software, BleachBit, if you will. And I'm not saying that was used in this case, but we did hear that there was some high-end software, if you will, that Bryan Kohberger was using to, quote unquote, wipe his devices. Is that true, Jared? Is that what was going on?
No. And again, just speaking to the two devices that we participated in, if there was something on something else, maybe that's true, but that's not true for what we did.
Really?
Yeah. So for the Android phone, if you think of it more of not some fancy wiping software, but the user making decisions to dumb down connectivity and make his device less fruitful. Ultimately, he used incognito mode in Google Chrome to try to sort of obscure the records that could be recorded about his web history. You can manually go in and just clean things up, clear my history, like things like that. With some time, they do actually delete. But he turned off his Wi-Fi, and so making his device not able to look out there and beacon and talk to networks that he might have been near. He used NordVPN, which in and of itself, it's benign. It's not something that is necessarily a nefarious thing. Security conscious people use VPNs all the time. Sometimes people use VPNs to stream stuff from somewhere else in the world just for fun. But as you start to build this profile of all of the behaviors that he did, especially around the time of the crime, he set up his device to be dumb, minimally collecting data. And so as we started to tackle the evidence from the Android, it wasn't what's here, but very obviously what's not here, and then hyper-focusing on the minutes and hours before and after this void of time where his phone was powered off in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm. And Heather, he physically, the prosecutor has said this, it didn't go into airplane mode. It didn't, the battery didn't die. He physically pushed this button, the power button, and turned off his phone the night of the murders.
Correct. I got lucky that I had the exact same test phone, make, model, Android version, AT&T network, like everything aligned perfectly. That I said to Jared, we have his exact phone. So we would replicate exactly what we found. So we would find these log files. We work with a really smart person, Josh Hickman, who is an Android expert. And we would reach out to Josh and say, do you know what this log is? What does this mean? So we recreated, not only did he physically power it off, he turned off Wi-Fi 2 days prior to the murder. He powered off his phone. It was at 100% battery. We're going to testify with 100% certainty that's what he did.
Why would he turn off Wi-Fi 2 days before the homicides? What does that mean? What does that say to you as a digital forensics investigator?
I would guess he didn't want to be detected. He knows Wi-Fi scanning happens, and we don't know. We didn't have fruitful location artifacts on his device because time to evidence matters, and Jared can dive more into that. But if he did pre-GI runs or showed that he wasn't connected to his home anymore, because sometimes these phones not only show what you're connected to, but if his alibi was that he was at home, it wasn't. It was he was stargazing. But Wi-Fi is huge in putting you at a location. So he knew that, and he wanted to prevent that.
Yeah, a lot of times choosing to press the button to turn off Wi-Fi, to me, that was preparation. That was him doing an action that he thought would help him get away with it. But what it ultimately does is it creates logging of the fact that he did that thing, and then now we're talking about it because he did that. Had he just left it on, it may have done something, but it may not have also.
And that behavior, you can go back and look at his phone months prior to that and see whether or not that is something he routinely did, because people are creatures of habit.
Exactly. And that's what we do. We try to pattern of life. What is your norm? And then we let the abnormal speak volumes to us.
And he didn't do that normally. Like Bryan Kohberger did not normally go on his phone and turn off the Wi-Fi, I would assume.
Yeah, there were just a few instances in the log where he did that. But I think when we talk about this, we tend to focus on like one individual action. Did he always do that? It's really a whole picture. Did his phone ever power off, manually by pressing the button with 100%? Like maybe he did that once before, but to do all of the things at the same time, and in that time frame is when people were murdered. That's the point. It's not a one-off thing. This is a culmination of numerous things coming together at the exact point in time where these crimes occurred.
So at the time of the murders, within the 2 days of the murders, he's powering off his Wi-Fi. But right before the murders, he's powering off his phone. Was there anything else around that time period that you found that was out of the norm or unusual?
On his computer, so this is supposed to be his school computer. And according to reports that I have read, Jared and I did a really good job of staying out of the media, not reading things, not listening to things. But in our investigative calls, he was apparently a good student. He didn't miss, shouldn't say good student. He was an attentive student who didn't really miss anything. He showed up. He had huge gaps in usage from October 12th through November 16th on his computer. However, the computer, just like Jared said, everything you do or don't do, the computer is constantly tracking it. So the computer would show that browser was in use, but then there's no history, that the system was in use, but then there's no activity. So we know that he was cleaning up his tracks, and what that may be, who knows? And that's something that I think a lot of people want to know. What do we think would be there if he hadn't cleaned up his digital tracks?
Yeah. So before the crime, we could see some browser history. After the crime, we can see browser history. In the period around the time, there's almost nothing. Like he was manually going in and clearing things around that time frame. And that's just leaves you to wonder, what was he searching? Where did he spend his minutes on his phone in that couple of days? Because we don't have everything. But instead, we have a void, and we have this period where he didn't leave the normal footprints that he did the rest of the time.
So on the phone, he did Chrome incognito browsing a lot from what we have seen. On his computer, he bounced back and forth. So it seemed like he got a little bit lax in December after the murder and had normal browsing activity. But where he really made mistakes, he did a good job of clearing his browser on the PC. He cleared his downloads. He cleared cache and cookies. So anything, if you go into the settings and it prompts you on which buttons you want to clear, great. He forgot to clear his downloads on his phone, which was very helpful to us.
So what did you find on the phone that you thought was telling or indicative of guilt?
As we started to dig in, we very clearly saw this couple of hours of the device powered off. And so obviously we knew when the murders happened, and that literally bookended that time. So the phone is powered off. Right away, we know, like in that couple hours, we're not going to have the location ping that puts him right at the crime scene. We're not going to have health. We're not going to have some of the stuff that we would have had if it were just powered on. But then taking sort of like a step back, so sort of timelining in both directions, we didn't have a smoking gun, and that's okay, because when an alibi is I was out taking pictures of the stars, I really silly put in a report, you cannot use a phone that is powered off to take photos of the stars. And you might say that's so dumb. Yeah, I know, but that's what he said he was doing. There was a period of time.
I know. I'm just,
where
I think we all kind of, I think did one of these when we read it. So.
Right. And so just to say, like, there were 0 pictures in this night of stars, like not before, not after, like he wasn't photographing. As you take a step back, then you start to see like, there's nothing here. And then you start to explore, why does Google Chrome have nothing right now? But then later we see every inch of everything he was doing. And it just starts to build this profile of specific actions taken to get rid of evidence around the time of the crime, which that in and of itself is the conversation. It's the, if you asked me what I was doing on that night, even if I happened to turn my phone off, I wasn't doing all of these things. And if I, looking at every normal person, because I see a lot of people say, well, I talk to my parents every day and I do this and I do that. I was like, great. But with all of these things combined in one single moment in time, it's different than just doing one of these things as a behavior.
And I think it shows premeditated intentions.
Definitely.
Did he call his parents every day? It sounds like, from what we're hearing, after he was incarcerated, I mean, he's on video calls on his tablet in jail with his mom for hours every day. So did you guys find that he was somebody who called his mom and dad like every morning?
Mother and father. That's what he called them in his phone. Mother and father. And yes,
It was very consistent. Like
starting at like 5 a.m. his time, and then every single night to also put him to bed.
Texting, calling. Yeah, I mean, there were numerous times where it seemed like his mother was basically saying at East Coast time, saying, "I'm going to bed," and then he was West Coast time, still staying up and doing whatever. But it was normal that it was almost, like consistent conversations between them.
Yeah, I think there was a good night text once where she said, "Go to bed, Bryan, calm down." And there were a lot of exclamation points too from his mom to him, because he would confirm, like, "Call now." And she would say, "Bryan, I said I will call at 5:30. Exclamation point. And he's like, "Now?" Question mark. And she would write 5:30 exclamation point.
So he's a 28-year-old guy. I mean, this sounds like he's got some attachment issues. Did you see that? Or does he come off as very needy when it comes to his parents?
I mean, just based on the communication, yes. And there didn't seem to be another person in his life based on what the evidence we looked at that filled any of his time. And there's not a friend that got consistent messages. There was pretty much nothing except for his communication with his parents.
The investigators have said there was no connection. They found no connection between Bryan Kohberger.
Okay, so Bryan Kohberger, the only, like, his friends, and I hate to even say it like this because they're not his friends. His parents are like the only figures in his life. Like, they are the main people in his life. And he's like, mother and father, that's it. Those are the people in his life. Like, it's really sad. He doesn't have any friends. I mean, maybe he lived a very isolated existence with his parents too. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know enough to know if he was raised kind of in an isolated existence with his parents. Because he had some issues, did they keep him away from people? Has he just always had trouble fitting in? But obviously, mother and father are the two main figures in his life, and that's it. 2 eggs over easy. Thank you for the super sticker. That's very kind. Thank you so much. I had some others I was going to shout out. Angelica Jinx. Thank you for the super sticker as well. It's very sweet. And Michelle Wilmot, thank you so much. Michelle says, Heather and Jared are brilliant. Thank you, Anjanette. Yes, I really enjoyed my conversation with them. So I'm going to continue this. I'll speed it up a little bit because then we can get into some of the reports too that I just got. And here you go. This is where I asked them about there being no connection to anybody, because that's what the prosecution has said. They found zero connection between Bryan Kohberger and any of the victims.
And Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. I've been to the house many times on King Road, and you can see straight into Maddie's bedroom from that upper parking lot of the apartment building next door. Is that what you found? Zero connection? Not one search of Maddie, not one search of Kaylee or Xana?
Not before, but again, he cleared a lot of his history. So if he was searching for it, we weren't able to find that on the devices. And that's one of the things we initially looked for right away. Any ties to the victims. After the fact, he was searching everything associated to the murders. And so he did have that information then.
I want to talk about the searches he did. It's my understanding he was searching, watching a lot of news stories on YouTube about this. I mean, he watched our stuff. He watched a lot of people's stuff on YouTube about this. He's searching for his own name related to this, searching for psychopath. What do you guys say about all of that, all of these searches that you see?
Initially, and this is where it's hard because he was a criminology major. Now, something I would challenge, I have a forensic science undergrad too. And just because I did bloodstain pattern analysis doesn't mean that I looked up people who were hitting heads with baseball bats excessively. So to each their own, we know that's what the defense was going to be. He looked up a lot of home invasions, burglaries, co-ed killings, serial killers. There was one search. I remember the first time we found it. Jared, I was sitting at the FBI and Jared was not, and I was on the phone with him. I'm like, I saw something weird, Danny Rawling. And he was like, wait a second, what's that name? And Jared looked it up and he's like, he's the Gainesville Ripper. He's a co-ed killer, same knife. Like, there were a lot of details there that were just too eerie. And then as Jared dove into the phone, there's even more. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So again,
and I think that was November, right? The first hit for Danny Rawling?
Yeah, I think so.
November of 2022.
Yes.
On Christmas 2022, so after the crime, late at night and into the early morning of the 26th, he was just like working through serial killers. And the site was specifically serial killer timelines. And so it just basically has this list of a bunch of serial killers. And
So the thing, I want to back this up. Let's listen to her talk about Danny Rawling again.
November of 2022.
November of 2022 is when they see him searching for Danny Rawling. And there was that weird, remember, she's talking about that weird gap in time starting in October in the internet searches or whatever. So let's listen to what she has to say again about Danny Rawling. And I'll tell you about Danny Rawling.
Co-ed killings, serial killers. There was one search. I remember the first time we found it. Jared, I was sitting at the FBI and Jared was not, and I was on the phone with him. I'm like, I saw something weird, Danny Rawling. And he was like, wait a second, what's that name? And Jared looked it up and he's like, he's the Gainesville Ripper. He's a co-ed killer, same knife. Like there were a lot of details there that were just too eerie. And then as Jared dove into the phone, there's even more. Do you want to share that?
yeah, so again,
And I think that was November, right? The first hit for Danny Rawling?
yeah, I think so.
November of 2022.
Yes.
On Christmas 2022, so after the crime.
So Danny Rawling in 1990. Danny Rawling, he's dead now. He was put to death for murdering college students in Gainesville in 1990. It's horrific. He was known as the Gainesville Ripper. He broke into an apartment with two young college-age women inside. They were sleeping. One was I believe on a couch. One was in a bedroom upstairs. Danny Rawling was dressed in all black. He was wearing a mask. And he had a K-bar knife. Danny Rawling taped the mouth shut of one of the young women who was upstairs in her bed. And he sexually assaulted her. And then stabbed her with the K-bar knife. He then went downstairs to the other young woman who was asleep on the couch and taped her mouth shut and sexually assaulted her and then stabbed her in the back with the K-bar knife and killed her. He did the same thing in another apartment. I may be mixing up the order here. But in one of the instances, he broke into the apartment through a sliding glass door. Does any of this sound vaguely similar? So he buys the K-bar knife in March of 2022. He's searching for Danny Rawling in November of 2022. And Danny Rawling sounds like he practically copied Danny Rawling to a T, except for the part about the sexual assault. And I will tell you one more time, like I've said it before, I think that he did not get to do what he wanted to do that night for whatever reason. So let's continue. Danny Rawling was a monster. He just was horrific what he did to those kids.
Late at night and into the early morning of the 26th, he was just like working through serial killers. And
this is Christmas. On Christmas, Bryan Kohberger is just searching serial killer after serial killer.
I think that was November, right? The first hit for Danny Rawling?
yeah, I think so.
November of 2022.
Yes.
On Christmas 2022, so after the crime, late at night and into the early morning of the 26th, he was just like working through serial killers. And the site was specifically serial killer timelines. And so it just basically has this list of a bunch of serial killers. And it seemed based on the timing of it that he was just clicking one, scanning, reading, and then going back and clicking the next one. And literally for a period of time, just reading about serial killer timelines. And it's literally a breakdown of like how they were raised, what their childhood was like with their parents, that somebody killed a dog when they were young, or that they were beaten by like, it is a timeline of these people's whole lives leading up to what ultimately is them getting caught for being serial killers. But he did that into the wee hours of the morning after Christmas Day.
Wow. And it's that he did search for Danny Rawling. And that one's a really chilling search because Danny Rawling used a K-bar. He sexually assaulted his victims and he was wearing all black and he entered a couple of their apartments through sliding glass doors. I did some research on that. He also searched for Harvey Glattman, Robert Hansen, Tommy Lynn Sells. Did you find any searches for Ted Bundy?
Yes.
It's on the PDF, right?
Yeah. Ted Bundy was in this same search time.
What was Bryan Kohberger searching related to pornography?
Yeah, so to not be too graphic with it, the consistent nature of the searches were non-consensual sex acts, which, I don't know what normal would be, but it stood out to me I've done investigations for years and tons of mobile device extraction analysis. And seeing pornography is not weird. Seeing what someone is interested in is not weird. But the fact that this person had non-consensual, specifically only that, not one other thing that was a consensual sex act. They were all like aggressive or drugged.
Or sleeping.
Voyeurism. It was all consistently non-consensual things.
And was this before, after the homicides, or both?
It was, I'm not sure.
It's autofill, so I don't know that we actually even have a date with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. When you're clearing your history, there's so many things that when you clear your history, you may not think about. Autofill is typically something you enter and the browser wants to please you. So if it knows that you go to a specific site every day, it's like, oh, you're going to this news channel. As you start typing A, if you're going to ABC, it knows I'm going to save this for you. And those words were saved in the autofill for Chrome.
Now, there has been endless speculation that Bryan Kohberger could have encountered Maddie or Xana at the Mad Greek restaurant in downtown Moscow, where they both worked. The Mad Greek is now closed, but the restaurant served some vegan dishes. Law enforcement has said they found no connection to Kohberger and the victims. I asked Heather and Jared about the possibility that Kohberger ever visited the Mad Greek.
Yes, and I would love to specify this a little bit more. And this was the one finding that was released to the prosecution that they came back and said the defense didn't like it, which made me think we were onto something. Like, this is great. So there is a Google Map cache file that was recovered from the Android that showed Mad Greek. And it looked like, I actually have it in front of me. It looked almost like a review, or if you think about if you Google in Google Maps and you look up restaurants nearby, you could call it, you could get directions, you could look at a menu. So it looks like all of those things were available. Now the issue, could it have Wi-Fi in that file? Absolutely, but I don't know. The issue is Mad Greek, their Wi-Fi name was Mad Greek. So it's not helpful to see what was in that listing. Mm-hmm. But what Jared and I had looked at a few times, and I plan to keep testing this to figure it out exactly. If the prosecution said, Heather, is it likely that the user was in Moscow and on Google Maps said nearby restaurants or bars and Mad Greek appeared? I would say yes. But if the defense came up and said, Heather, is it possible that from Pullman, Washington, the suspect searched for restaurants in Moscow and this came up? Could that happen? I would say yes. So it's not like we can tie him to the location of Mad Greek, but Mad Greek, he physically saw Mad Greek on his phone.
So you can't say specifically that he was there, but you found something in his phone that indicated that he had at least viewed it on his phone.
Yes.
So you don't have any evidence showing that his Wi-Fi on his phone bumped up against or tried to connect to the Wi-Fi at the Mad Greek?
No, I wish. And as Jared said, he was really cautious about his Wi-Fi and the cleanup. And there's so many things. Logs are only kept for so long. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the investigators didn't know who the suspect was right away. So it took time to get to his device. And on Android, logs can be cleared after 24 hours, a week, 30 days. So time to evidence is huge in cases like this. And there just wasn't a suspect fast enough.
Now, Heather and Jared also have some thoughts on that disturbing thumbs up selfie that Bryan Kohberger took 6 hours after the murders, where he is in his bathroom. Jared noticed something specifically about Kohberger's hands.
Yeah, that this thumbs up with sort of the Band-Aid. As soon as I saw it, it catches your eye, because his knuckles look just so white. And like, it reminded me of like scrubbing your hands for days to try to get something off. And then there's this like Band-Aid that's visible. That's, like just barely visible in the picture. The hoodie picture as well. It's been like sort of a popular one in the case as well. The general behavior, as I looked at it, I would have said that criminology major and studies of criminology does not excuse you for the amount of searching, the times of day. This wasn't a healthy, like I'm doing this for my college class type of activity. It seemed very different. I think the smoking gun, there really wasn't one, but for his device was his bookend that he put around these killings. To be awake at that time in the morning, turning your phone off and then turning it back on. And there's plenty of other records that we didn't access. Like the FBI did some sort of cell record mapping for where his phone was based on the cell towers. Right? That wasn't anything that we were doing. But the moment that he turned his phone back on, they can start to take over and say, and this is where he was. Right. And so for that period of time where these people were killed, he was awake and had turned his phone off. And in my opinion, had prepared by killing his Wi-Fi, using VPN, clearing out his search history to do this.
So he was obsessed in your mind with serial killers and had basically been planning this for some time. I mean, he bought the knife, we know, in March of 2022, but then maybe actually plotting this, Heather, you're talking October, so a month prior. So, he might have had the thought in his mind in March, but the actual maybe planning and selection could have started possibly in October.
Yeah, the gap of why that far back only on browser was weird to me. It didn't make much sense. And I'm not sure if that's possibly when he decided he was going to be more of an incognito browser. Who knows? It was just really bizarre behavior. And then there were also, Jared, do you remember all of I saw the show or movie American Psycho just a few times, and how much the guy loved himself and would take selfies in the mirror and how clean he would want to be and just examining his body. He seemed to do those same types of things.
Yeah, lots of like flexing muscles, selfies, half clothed, like that. There's numerous instances of that on his phone. There was also he spent a lot of time on Reddit, and especially post crime. There's tons of history of him looking into like the Idaho murders on Reddit, and that's actually another thing that stood out. Is this wasn't just someone who was like, "Hey, I'm interested in the case." He was going and downloading the Moscow press releases to his device, like not just taking a look at what the news said, but like almost like saving everything that they populated. There was a Reddit post that it appears that he made based on his emails, where he was looking for ex-cons to participate in some study, and people were like emailing him. And ultimately, you see Reddit suspends him, which I think was at time of arrest and notification to the world. But there was also a really interesting sort of pattern of things where he read something on the news that said, police still looking for Hyundai Elantra, white in color, this year to this year, make and model. Within minutes, he searches for a car detailing place and then starts to shop for used cars. So it was almost like, I realized that they know my car. I have to get rid of it and get something different. So like, again, does a normal person look to clean their car before they sell it? Sure. Right. But all of these things adding up, it really paints a picture.
Wow. Well, is there anything that I haven't touched on that you think is really glaring and a red flag that you think the viewers really should know about? This has been fascinating.
He just had extreme obsessive behaviors, like with his mother and father, with the abnormal porn searches, with his serial killers, wiretapping, like even some of the terms, psychopath, paranoia. One thing I would say to any family, I believe by looking at his computer that he was paranoid in the end. And I think Jared can say the same thing from looking at his phone. I don't think he was just resting easy thinking he got away with these murders. I think he knew that people were coming for him. Jared,
you think he knew?
Oh yeah.
And he was just waiting.
I definitely think, again, the late hours, the searches that he was doing, to say like psychopathic paranoia and studying serial killers into looking to get rid of his car. He was nervous. I can't imagine when he got pulled over coming across the country, what he thought in that moment. And then he probably thought I got away with it, but you could tell that he was still very nervously like thinking that someone was coming for him, and they were. You just need a little time to figure them out.
Well, it's been really fascinating talking to both of you. Heather Barnhart and Jared Barnhart, thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So Bryan Kohberger was obsessed with serial killers, non-consensual pornography, and his parents were his main contacts in his life.
So what do you guys think of that? Afton is here. Hi, Afton. Afton says some guys get off on having power over others. They don't need what we think of as sex acts. I agree with you 100%. I think you are very accurate on that. This could be a sexually motivated crime without an actual sex act involved. But obviously the searches for non-consensual pornography and all of the serial killers that I mentioned, this Glatman guy, Danny Rawling, there was another one, the Coast to Coast killer, this other dude that he searched for, they are all of their crimes involved sexual assault as well as murder. So that's why, somebody I saw in the comments said he could have been, they believed he was impotent, and that's actually very possible. He could have been impotent. I'm looking through more of your comments. I'm looking through more of your comments, guys. But as I mentioned, let's look now at this prison video and what the prison is saying about it. And then I'll move on to some of the Moscow reports. Or I'm sorry, Idaho State Police reports. I apologize, guys. It's been a long week again. So last night, somebody tagged me in this. Said, "Is this real?" This is on Twitter. And it looks like Bryan Kohberger wearing black sweatpants and sneakers. And clearly it looks like him in a some type of prison facility. And somebody was telling me they thought this was some type of evaluation unit, like a medical unit, where, you know, when you first get to a prison for 7 to 14 days, you're evaluated medically. So I contacted the Idaho Department of Corrections this morning. Sometimes it takes them like a day to get back to you, but they got back pretty quickly to me today. And they said in their statement, because at first I was like, you know, this could be, who knows? This could be fake. It looks real, but I'm not taking any chances in the world of this brave new world we live in of AI and all of that stuff. But they said we are aware of the videos circulating online and are investigating the matter. While we cannot yet confirm the veracity of the videos, if verified, they are a clear violation of IDOC policy, and the parties responsible will be held accountable up to and including termination. We caution that some videos may be fake or AI enhanced. And that was my concern about even thinking about sharing this, you know. Somebody just said, geez, his cell is bigger than I thought. I think that this is like a medical observation unit kind of cell. I don't think this is not a typical cell. So the statement continues. On July 23 and again on July 25, IDOC leadership sent 2 emails to staff reminding them of our policies and expectations concerning professionalism and the appropriate use of technology and social media. Videotaping and publicly sharing security footage is prohibited conduct, and we will be reviewing all legal options, including criminal prosecution. The safety and security of all of our staff and incarcerated population remain our top priority. So somebody at the prison, if this is totally legit, and it looks like it, but God only knows if it really is or not, is in big trouble. Big trouble. So they will be able to figure out, I'm pretty sure, pretty quickly who took that video. It's not going to be that hard. Come on. So yeah. So let's get into these ISP reports. I'm looking specifically, for one, I just searched and I found something interesting, pardon me. And now I'm going to search it again. But please let me know in the comments what you thought of Jared and Heather's interview, because, you know, they tried to find, you know, they're trying to find if he searched for any of the victims, and they couldn't because he's searching in incognito mode. I didn't think incognito mode was that good. I didn't think it worked that well. And then, so that actually works. Apparently he's using VPNs, and then he's clearing his search history and all of this stuff. And then after a certain period of time, that stuff kind of vanishes anyway, it sounds like, from your computer. So he did a good job, it sounds like, but not good enough, because then they find other stuff that shows consciousness of guilt. He's trying to get rid of his car. Bryan Kohberger, they said, tried to get rid of the white Elantra. He knew that was bad news. He knew they were coming for him. So he was trying to get rid of that car. He knew he needed to get rid of the white Elantra. Pretty interesting stuff. So let's look into these reports a little bit. One of them that is interesting is from Dylan. I'm looking, guys. I just had it pulled up here and then it like vanished. Maybe I might be on the wrong page. Sorry about that. Here we go. I had it on 2 different pages. Let me share my screen. This is Dylan's, and it's interesting how they do this with numbers here. Really interesting. She does not, and this is Dylan, I believe. She does not remember if anyone locked the sliding glass door before she went to bed. She was the first to go to bed, and ahead of the other roommates. She explained that she had previously had a lot of dreams where she had been kidnapped in her dreams. And she further explained these types of dreams started in high school, and she knew they were dreams. And she would let those things happen in her dreams because she realized they were dreams. She advised she does not suffer from anxiety and denied prior life trauma other than divorced parents. She explained she was awakened to noise sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. She was asked to explain the amount of alcohol she had consumed before going to bed, and she explained she was playing Rage Cage, which included the White Claws, part of something Borg, and maybe 2 or 3 more drinks at so-and-so's house, whoever that is. She denied drinking after she left so-and-so's house. She advised she had been consuming the alcohol until approximately 1:15 to 1:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. She denied drinking any more alcohol after she got back to her residence. At 4:22 a.m., she confirmed this information by looking at a texted communication on a cell phone. She texted Kaylee asking her what's going on. She advised her phone said 5:22 a.m., which she advised would have been 4:22 a.m. Moscow time. She advised around 4 a.m. or 4:20 a.m., she heard Kaylee singing and playing music. She heard She heard who she believed to be Kaylee walking up the stairs, and blank advised she heard Kaylee say, "Someone's here." She sounded frantic. She described Kaylee's tone as somewhere between talking and yelling it. She believed it was Kaylee who was walking up the stairs with Murphy. She said she heard who she believed to be Kaylee running down the stairs. She advised Murphy was barking at this time. Dylan advised she has been, and it's redacted. She does not believe Murphy is normally a barker. She further stated she believed it was Kaylee who was running down the stairs after she heard her say, "Someone is here." She further explained she does not know if she actually heard this or whether she was drunk and did not actually hear any of this. She heard the footsteps of who she believed to be Kaylee. She explained all the girls wear Doc Martens, and that is what she believed she was hearing Kaylee coming down the stairs wearing her Doc Martens because of the sound of the footsteps coming down the stairs. Dylan called Bethany at 4:19 a.m., then Xana at 4:20, Kaylee at 4:20, and then Bethany again at 4:20. Dylan advised Bethany told her about seeing fireworks. She texted Bethany a last time at 4:27 before she went to Bethany's room. And I'm just reading through the redactions here. Dylan then explained when she first opened her door, and she said she did not see anyone. The second time when she opened her door, she heard who she believed to be Kaylee crying and believed Kaylee was in the second floor bathroom. She then heard a male voice, which stated she had never heard before, say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Dylan believed that the unidentified male was in the bathroom and with the person who was crying. She believed it was Kaylee who was the one crying. Bethany stated that now she has gathered additional information. She now believes it was probably Xana who was crying. At the moment of hearing the crying, she stated she believed it was Kaylee who was crying. She advised she knows the male's voice was not Ethan's. She described the last episode of the Vampire Diaries, and she remembered it was 2 males rescuing a female. She explained that it was not violent. She advised the male figure in the last episode was wearing all black,
But Bethany, but Dylan explained that that was normal for the series. She is not certain whether she heard Murphy barking during the first time she opened her door, but she advised it was possible he was barking, but Murphy was moving away from the house. She described Murphy was a puppy and she had just met him in August. She could not describe Murphy as being skittish. Bethany advised she continued to call and text her roommates, but received no answers. She provided the times she called and texted her roommates, and the time span she advised would have been between 4:20 a.m. to 4:27 a.m. She advised she never thought about an intruder, and in her mind, she stated she was not processing what was occurring as threatening. She advised she believed the male was directing his conversation of who she believed was Kaylee. She advised she did not believe the male was directing the statement to her. In discussing why the offender did not harm her, it was discussed that it was possible the male knew her and wanted to protect her, and she said she understood that was possible, but she denied knowing who the suspect was. Dylan further explained she Snapchatted Ethan but received no answer from Ethan. Dylan thought Ethan was still either at Sigma Chi or was at home. She was not certain. I think that's what that's supposed to say. The third time that Dylan opened her door, she said her vision was blurry or fuzzy, but she advised she saw a figure of someone that was dressed in all black and they were masked, and he was holding an item of what she initially perceived was a vacuum. But she said that did not make sense to her. She described the suspect as not being muscular, but being skinny and toned like a basketball player. She further described him as being taller than her 5'10" frame by at least 3 inches, so he would have been 6 feet in height. She advised he had to have heard her call Kaylee and Xana, and she thought he would have had to have heard her calling for them, and she was confused as to why he did not come to her room. She described the item the suspect was holding, which she advised was like a cylinder, and she remembered a cop talking about a bow. So she was trying to ascertain if what she saw was in fact shaped like a bow. Dylan further stated she thought that maybe it was a firefighter because of what Dylan told her about about what Bethany told her about seeing a firecracker. She advised he would have been approximately 3 feet away from her, and she believed she saw him walking out the back sliding glass door. He had looked at her before walking out the back door. She was not certain if he could see her whole body or just her head. At 4:22 a.m., then blank corrected her time and stated at 4:23 a.m. she advised she texted blank and they conversed about someone wearing all black. And blank said something to the effect of, "What the F? Why is Xana wearing all black?" Blank explained she was not certain if she had been dreaming this or if it was real. Blank explained she saw the suspect holding something she believed to be a cylinder shaped and also shaped like a triangle at the bottom of the cylinder shape. She advised the suspect was approximately 3 feet away from her and he looked at her but was walking out the sliding door when she saw him. She said she saw his eyebrows. At approximately 4:23 a.m., she texted Bethany to tell her she saw a masked suspect in the house. Bethany responded at 4:25 a.m., telling her to come to her room and that it's better than being alone. Dylan then left her bedroom after opening her door the 4th time and ran to Bethany's bedroom downstairs. Dylan advised when she left her bedroom, she looked down the hallway to Xana's room and could see Xana lying on her back in her underwear, but thought at that time that she was passed out. Dylan stated she never went into Xana's bedroom and she could only see Xana from the hallway, and she was running to get to Bethany's bedroom. She advised she was too scared to go into Xana's room, and she knew that Bethany was awake, and she knew to go there because she was scared. She saw Xana was wearing her
underwear, and she explained that Xana was comfortable enough with the roommates that she would do that around them, so this was not unusual. When asked about the lighting conditions inside the residence, she advised that possibly Xana's light was on or the party lights were on, and that's how she was able to see Xana, because otherwise she would not have been able to see her lying on the floor without any lights on. She was not certain if the bathroom lights were on, but she was not certain what lights were on, if any. She advised Xana did not say anything. Dylan stated she did not think anything was wrong. She later offered that she may have been able to see Xana lying on the floor because they also had a Sensi light, and it could have been able to see Xana from the Sensi light. She explained she has been trying to determine what was real from everything that she had been talking about with Sergeant Blaker and myself. She advised she knew the time with Bethany, Kaylee, and Maddie were real because she has the video of them together. She was not certain how something happened. I'm losing my place, guys. I'm going to scroll through this some more. I'm not seeing anything. I saw something reported last night, and I'm not seeing that in this document, what was reported. But there are also a lot of documents in here. She knows Kaylee and Maddie were home when she went to bed and blank, and from when she saw Xana lying on the floor, but she was not certain about whether Ethan was home. She advised she left blank and blank house at approximately 12:49 a.m. to return home. Blank stated she is certain at 3:11 a.m., which through discussion may have been 2:11 Moscow time. Blank, Kaylee, Maddie, and she were all in the house, so that would have been Bethany. She was not certain about Xana and Ethan because she does not know when they came home. She denied perceiving a threat even after encountering the male in the hallway. She said there were people coming in and out of their house all the time. She denied remembering what his face looked like, and she said she could see that his head and mouth were covered, but she could see his eyebrows, and further advised she was not certain she could see his nose. When asked if she knew what a balaclava was, and she said no, so I asked Sergeant Blaker to show blank a picture of a balaclava from his cell phone, and upon looking at a picture of a balaclava, she said it could have been, that could have been it. She does not remember seeing his mouth or his nose, but she could see his eyebrows. When asked if any of her roommates told her about prior incidents involving anything that concerned them, and she advised Kaylee had told them, blank and the other roommates, about an incident a month prior when she was outside with Murphy about a subject who had been watching her. This subject was in the apartments above the girls' residence. Blank further explained that 2 to 3 weeks ago, while at Winco, Kaylee told her about a male subject who followed her from the Winco store all the way to Kaylee's car. Even when Kaylee went to leave, the subject was standing by Kaylee's car. Now, that person cooperated with the investigation. We know that from the third-party suspect stuff. So there you go, guys. This is a lot of stuff in there. I am going to wrap this up for tonight, but I will come back on here and talk about more of these. I need to kind of go through more of these before I talk about them. So I really, really appreciate you coming on tonight to hang out with me for a little while. There's 600 pages of this stuff, so I'm going to go through more of it, and then I will read more of it to you, and we will convene another time. So again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much to the mods and Monty, the docket, Melmac. Webby is not here tonight, but I thank you all for being here with me. And remember to hit that like button, hit the like, hit the subscribe, the thumbs up. That helps the video. And I will see you back here another night and another time. Until next time, that's my son behind me waving a dog. So I... Sorry, guys. But we will do this another night. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you again to the mods. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go through these reports and I will come back here another time and we will go through more of these. Have a great night, guys. Till next time.